بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Now we're moving on to discuss the alaqa between the haqiqa and the majaz. What are we saying? That to get from a haqiqa to a majaz, you have to have two conditions. Mentioned in the previous lesson, you have to have what? According to Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, sihatul ma'na. And according to Sahibain, you have to have sihatul ma'na wal lafz. So Imam Abu Hanifa sihatul lafz and Sahibain sihatul lafzi wal ma'na. Okay? Now, what we have here is, we're saying here, لا بد لاستعمال اللفظ في غير ما وضع له من مناسبة بين المعنى الحقيقي والمعنى المجازي كالأسد للرجل الشجاع. So لا بد, necessary. So for the usage of a word في غير ما وضع له, for the usage of a word in a meaning for which it has not been coined, لا بد means there's no escape from من منى. So لا بد, there's no escape for using a word in its غير ما وضع له. There's no escape from a munasaba, a link, a connection between the ma'na al-haqiq and the ma'na al-majazi. And the translation will be, it is necessary for using a word in its majazi meaning, in its غير ما وضع له meaning, to have a munasaba, a connection, a link between the literal meaning and the metaphorical meaning. And without this munasaba, you cannot go from haqiqat to majaz. You can't just make up random words and say, oh, I said apple and I met pears. Like, why, or how, where did you get that from? On what ground are you basing this? You have to have some kind of connection, some kind of link. If not, our conversation will be so useless. كالأسد للرجل الشجاع. When you say asad and you mean rajul shuja', then it has to have a link. Asad is mawdu', is wudi'a lahu for al-hayawan al-muftaris, a predatorous animal that we all know about. And it is used in غير ما وضع له, which is the metaphorical meaning, rajul shuja'. What is the alaqa? What is the munasaba? So in Arabic, in balagha, we call it the alaqa. Here, they're calling it the munasaba. What is the link? Shaja'a and bravery. So, you have the haqiqi meaning, our primary meaning. And to go over to the majaz meaning, we have to have a link. What's this link called? The munasaba. And then we can say here, using the munasaba, you have a car and the two bridges. The sihatul lafz bridge. Sihatul lafz. You have to have what? Sihatul ma'na. If you don't have a munasaba, you can't go over, you can't travel over. And if you don't have a sihatul lafz and sihatul ma'na, you don't get past the two checkpoints. Or one checkpoint according to Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. Understood? Okay. Now, let's look at this word. Look at it here. We have illa. So we're going haqiq and majaz. But again, we're moving on to some fiqhi examples where this rule is applied to haqiq and majaz and what the alaqa, what's the munasaba. So we have here illa and shira. So shira is purchasing. Are you following? You purchase something, you buy something. This is a cause. What is a cause when you buy something? It causes milk. Yes? Ownership. What is milk? Ownership. So it's a hukam. So you have an illa and a hukam. So shira and a milk. Are you following? So illa and a hukam. Illa directly leads to the hukam. When you buy something, directly, automatically, what does it lead to? It leads to a ownership. Correct? Then you have something called sabab. Sabab, you can say, is a step before the hukam. So you have sabab, illa and hukam. Okay? So sabab is tahrir. Let's say tahrir. What's tahrir mean? To emancipate somebody. So before slavery was abolished, what do we have? We have slaves. And you free a slave. Islam has always encouraged this. For any mistake, mishap, sin, misdeed, many of the times the compensation and expiation of the sin would be tahrir, freeing a slave. Tahrir raqaba. So when you free a slave, what happens? Zawalu milkir raqaba. What happens? Milkur raqaba. Ownership of that slave goes away. Correct? So the master frees a slave, he no longer has ownership of that slave. That slave is now free, emancipated. As a result, if it's a female slave, what will happen? He no longer has the right to cohabit with that slave. Yes? Following? So in nikah, you get married, when you get nikah, then you have the right to cohabit. When you have ownership, and following the correct procedure, when slavery was in place, the rule is that the owner has a right to cohabit with that slave. But by freeing the slave, what happens automatically? Her entire, the milkul raqaba. Again, these are terms. You don't understand. Again, you don't learn akhlaq from fiqh. It's just like you have these terms. It doesn't teach. It's not teaching you like. Not say you don't learn akhlaq, but we don't. It's not a book of teaching you how to deal with things. It's understanding. Okay, rules of law, bare minimum. For example, what's the bare minimum right of a woman, of a wife? What's the bare minimum right of the husband? You don't deal like that. You don't. That's how things work. But if it comes to a case like this is the bare minimum that you're entitled to. So just to understand and to codify certain things, we say, well, you have milqul raqaba, you have the right to ownership, and you have the right to cohabitation. When you free this slave girl, your right to ownership what? Goes away. And after that, automatically, as a result of the right to ownership going away, what happens now? The right to cohabitation also goes away. You understand? So in this, you have a sabab, the step. Second, this leads to this, and this leads to this. Does that understand? You understand sabab and illa, and sabab illa and hukam? Yes? Okay. Now based on this, we're saying here, because we're not discussing language, we're discussing fiqh. So we wouldn't say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَجْنُونَ أَصَابِهِمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ. Why does Allah use adhan? Why does Allah use asabi and not unmul? Or why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ رِزْقًا? Why does Allah use the word rizq and not ma? Those are ma'ani. They don't have any fiqh implications. So we don't discuss those. We're discussing those majaz or those majaz and haqiqa which have fiqh implications. So, wal-ittisal. We can say the alaqa. The alaqa in ahkamu shari بين المعنى المجازي وبين المعنى الحقيقي على نحوين. Is it nahwain in your book? Yeah, two ways. Meaning the alaqa. When we talk about fiqh examples, so obviously have examples in balagha, majaz mursal, باعتبار ما كان, باعتبار ما يكون, سبب, سببية, مسببية, جزئية, كلية, علاق, مجاز بالقرب. All of these were done in balagha. But none of those have fiqh implications. We look at a fiqh perspective. So the alaqa between a haqiqa and a majaz can be one of two. Number one, al-ittisalu bayna al-illati wal-hukm. كالاتصال بين الشراء والملك. والثاني الاتصال بين السبب. So illa, direct. Sabab and sabab and hukam. So remember the illa leads to the hukam directly. And the sabab leads to the hukam via what in between? The illa in between. Yes? كالاتصال بين ملك الرقبة. Like the link or the connection between milk al-raqaba or milk al-mut'a or milk al-bud'a. Yes? The right to cohabitation. Let's explain this. What do we say? So what can happen is that the word that is used as the illa, you can use what instead? You can use the hukam. You following? So the word, the illa, the word used for the illa and the word used for the hukam. So we can use the word for the hukam and mean the illa, majaz. Or we can use the word for sabab and mean the word that's meant for the hukam, which is haqiqa. Or you can use the hukam word and mean the sabab meaning. That's also majaz. Explain it again here in detail. What's the hukam? يصح المجاز في الأول من الجانبين. If you have a relationship between a sabab and a hukam, then you can use majaz both ways. What does this mean? وفي الثاني من جانب واحد وهو ذكر السبب وإرادة الحكم. Let me explain this. So you go back, what do we have here? We have the same system again. في الأول, this is the أول. This is الثاني. What do we say in here? In here, you can use it both ways. You can use majaz both ways. You can say اشتريت, and what's the majaz meaning of this? So you can say اشتريت. If you say اشتريت and malaktu. So the haqiqi meaning of malaktu is to own. And the majaz meaning of malaktu can be what? The majaz meaning of malaktu, majaz. Because what's the illa and hukam link? We say, if I malaktu, and what do you mean by malaktu? If I purchase. So you can say malaktu and mean what? Ishtaraitu. And you can say ishtaraitu and mean what? Malaktu. Because why? There's an alaqa between the illa and the hukam. Is everybody following this so far? So in the first example, between the illa and the hukam, you can use either. You can use the majaz both ways. You can say the illa and mean the hukam, and say the hukam and mean the illa. And the second one is only permissible one way. You can say harartu and mean what? Harartu and mean what? Okay, what does zawalu milkul bud'a mean? You no longer have the right to cohabitation. When does that also occur? In talaq. That's opposite talaq, isn't it? When a woman is divorced, you no longer have right to cohabitation. Yes? No. So here you can say what? Harartu and mean what? Talaqtuki. So a man can say to his wife, Harartuki, and what his intention can be? The majaz, which is what? Because Harartu, in a slave girl, when you say Harartuki, what happens? Her body becomes free, and then obviously she has right to her own body, and the master no longer has any right to her khidmah, her service, and he no longer has right to intercourse. So similarly here, zawalu milk al-bud'a. Talaq also comes. Talaq comes the same thing as well, isn't it? No longer have right to intercourse. So what we're saying here, you can say harartu and mean what? Talaqatu. But you can't say the other way around. You can't say talaqtu and mean what? So let's do the same color. So here, the blue, haqiqa, you can say what? You can say harartu, I free you. So you can say harartu, I free. And what can you mean? What's the majazi meaning of this? Talaqtu. But you can't say here talaqtu and mean what? Harartu. So only works one way in here. Do you understand what he's saying? Why is this? And you would do this in a bigger book. But this is the hukam. Yes? Therefore, mithal. What's the mithal? إِذَا قَالَ إِن مَلَكْتُ أَبْدًا فَهُوَ حُرٌّ. If I own a slave, فَهُوَ حُرٌّ. What does milk mean? What does milk mean? How can ownership come about? By buying, how else? Inheriting. Gift. So now if you say malaktu abdan fahuwa hurrun, he take an oath. If I own a slave, if I ever own a slave, I will free it. Now if he said, I said malaktu and I meant ishtaraitu, is this possible? Yes, will accept this. Yes, why? Because the majaz is possible both ways. The majaz is possible here. You can say malaktu, the hukam, and mean the illah. وَأَرَادَ مِنَ الْمُلْكِ الشِّرَاء. If he said malaktu abdan fahuwa hurrun, and he said I meant shira, I didn't mean if I inherited it or if I was given as a gift. Yasihu. That is what? Correct. This intention would be correct. Obviously there are a few more implications. For example, if it goes to court, whether the qazi accept his statement or not because of the possibility of him lying and all of that. فِيمَا بَيْنَ اللَّهِ وَفِي الْقَضَاءِ. But look at the basic rule. Okay. وَلَوْ قَالَ اشْتَرَيْتُ أَبْدًا فَهُوَ حُرٌّ. And if he said, if I buy a slave, he is free. And he meant what? If I own a slave. That's also correct. Because between the illa and the hukam, you can use majaz either way. You can say either word and mean the other. Are you following? Okay. Al-amthila. What is the amthila? Yeah, next example. What about the other way? If you say لِإِمْرَأَتِهِ حَرَّرْتُكِ, I have freed you. And he meant what? Talaq will take place. Will it correct? Will talaq take place? Because you can go from this way. Sabab to the hukam. So if you say nawaitu, I say harartuki, I free you. And what does it mean? He said I had intention of talaq. Correct. وَلَوْ قَالَ لِأَمَتِهِ. If you say to a slave girl talaqtuki, and he said I made intention of freeing her, la yasih. That won't be correct. However, it's free again if you want to free her. They say harartuki later on. But maybe he got scared. He said I said talaqtuki. Then what will happen? Will she become free? Say no. It doesn't work the other way. It's a one-way street. Do you understand? Does everyone understand that? Any questions regarding this? So the question here that has been raised is that we're saying al-alaqa bin haqiqa wal majaz, and in usul shashi it says isti'ara. You see in usul fiqh, haqiq, majaz and isti'ara is used interchangeably. In balagha we have a fixed term. Majaz is when you have what? Isti'ara is when it's a majaz, is a tashbih, and you use the mushabbah bih is removed. Mushabbah is removed, mushabbah bih is used in place of it. That's called isti'ara. And majaz is when it's what? Either majaz aqli or majaz mursal. But in balagha, in usul fiqh, even the Hasha usul fiqh is in the usul says that as well. That they use it interchangeably. The majaz and isti'ara meanings are not like so defined as what is separate. It's meaning using a word is a non-original meaning. Whether alaqa is tashbih, whether alaqa is ghayr tashbih, it doesn't matter. You following? Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.